When a narcissist realizes they can't control you anymore, they usually do three things. The first is a test. The second is an escalation. And the third reveals what they were really trying to control all along. Let's start with the first, because it can look completely harmless. They test you. Maybe it's a message after days of silence, a strange comment, a sudden like on your social media, a question they already know the answer to, or they casually mention someone they know could make you jealous. The behavior changes, but the question underneath it is always the same. Can I still make you react? Before, they already knew the answer. They became distant, and you chased them. They accused you, and you defended yourself. They ignored you, and you tried to understand why. They became affectionate again, and you felt relief. Over time, your reactions became predictable. And once someone can predict exactly what will make you anxious, guilty, jealous, or desperate for reassurance, they know which emotional buttons produce results. But now they press one of those buttons and nothing happens. You don't send the desperate message. You don't demand an explanation. You don't defend yourself against every accusation. You notice the provocation without automatically stepping into it. That is the first disruption. And here is what makes the test so effective. It often doesn't look like manipulation. It can look like curiosity, nostalgia, concern, or even kindness. I was just checking on you. I had a dream about you. I saw something that reminded me of you. The message itself may seem meaningless. Your reaction is what gives it meaning. If you immediately reopen the emotional connection, they have learned that access is still available. But if the familiar test produces an unfamiliar response, they learn something else. The old pattern may be disappearing. And one failed test usually doesn't answer the question for them. They may try another button, then another. They change the timing, the tone, even the emotion they present. And this is where the situation becomes much easier to recognize. Because when the subtle test fails repeatedly, the behavior often stops being subtle. The pressure increases, the tactics become stronger. And that brings us to the second thing they do when they realize they can no longer control you. They escalate. When the first test fails, the narcissist doesn't necessarily stop. They often increase the pressure. And this is where the pattern becomes easier to see. If silence no longer makes you chase, they may try jealousy. If jealousy doesn't work, they may use guilt. If guilt fails, they may suddenly become warm, apologetic, or nostalgic. Different tactic. Same objective. Can I still make you react? This escalation can be confusing because the emotional temperature changes quickly. Yesterday they were cold. Today they miss you. Tomorrow they may accuse you of becoming selfish, cruel, or distant. Then, without warning, they become affectionate again. It can feel chaotic, but the behavior has a pattern. They are searching for the emotional button that still works. One of the strongest is guilt. They may say, after everything I did for you, this is how you treat me? Or they may rewrite the relationship until your boundaries begin to look like cruelty and their behavior disappears from the story entirely. The goal is simple. Get you explaining yourself again. Because the moment you start desperately proving that you are not selfish, not cruel, not heartless, the interaction has reopened. Another tactic is jealousy. A new person suddenly appears. A photograph becomes unusually visible. They casually mention how much attention they are receiving. Whether it is deliberate or not, the important question for you is the same. Does it pull you back into comparison, investigation, or competition? And then comes the tactic that can be hardest to resist: sudden tenderness. They tell you they understand now. They remember intimate moments. They say exactly what you once begged them to say. And because you wanted those words for so long, hearing them now can feel like proof that something finally changed. But don't judge the moment by the intensity of the words. Judge it by what happens when you maintain your boundary. Genuine change can tolerate a boundary. A control-driven pattern often cannot. If the warmth quickly becomes anger when you don't respond as expected, that tells you something important. The affection may have been another route back to the same destination: your reaction. If this pattern is helping you recognize something you've lived through, subscribe, because the third behavior is where the dynamic becomes completely different. Once the narcissist has tried silence, guilt, jealousy, affection, and anger and still cannot reliably move you, they face something they didn't have to face before. They can no longer predict you. And that is when the third stage begins. This is where the dynamic changes. The narcissist has tested you. They have escalated. They have changed tactics. But nothing gives them the certainty they had before. They no longer know which version of themselves will get a reaction from you. Coldness doesn't make you chase. Anger doesn't make you defend yourself. Jealousy doesn't make you compete. Affection doesn't automatically pull you back in. And when they can no longer predict your emotional response, they lose something more important than the argument: reliable access to your behavior. Think about what control actually requires. It requires predictability. If someone knows that ignoring you for 2 days will make you send 5 messages, they can use silence strategically. If they know an accusation will make you spend an hour defending yourself, they know how to keep you engaged. If they know jealousy will make you compete for their attention, they know exactly where to apply pressure. But once those reactions stop being automatic, the old system becomes unreliable. And this is where you may notice another shift. They can become more inconsistent because they are no longer following a strategy that reliably works. They may disappear longer, return unexpectedly, act completely indifferent, become unusually friendly, try to provoke one final argument, or suddenly behave as if the entire relationship meant nothing. Don't get trapped trying to decode every move. The individual tactic matters less than the pattern. They are no longer getting predictable emotional feedback from you. And that is the real loss of control. Not that they have lost control of themselves. Not that they necessarily panic or collapse. It means they have lost the ability to reliably control the interaction through your reactions. That distinction matters because if you start watching for their breakdown, waiting for revenge, or checking whether they are suffering, your attention is still organized around them. The goal was never to become better at the game. The goal was to stop being controlled by it. And once you understand that, the third behavior reveals what they were trying to control all along. It wasn't simply whether you stayed or left. It was whether their actions could still determine what happened inside you. Your anxiety, your guilt, your jealousy, your need to explain yourself, your need for their approval. When those emotional responses stop dictating your behavior, something fundamental changes. They can still send the message. They can still make the accusation. They can still disappear. but they can no longer guarantee what happens next. And that leads to the most important part of this entire process: what changes when their behavior stops controlling your inner world. And this is the part most people misunderstand. The real victory is not watching the narcissist fall apart. It is reaching the point where you no longer need them to. Because if you are still checking whether they regret losing you, watching their social media to see if they are miserable, or waiting for the day they finally admit what they did, they still occupy emotional space inside you. The dynamic may have changed, but your attention is still connected to them. Real freedom looks different. Their silence becomes just silence. Their accusations no longer demand a defense. Their new relationship doesn't become a measurement of your worth. Their sudden affection doesn't erase everything that happened before. You can notice what they are doing without making it the center of your emotional world. And that is what they can no longer reliably control: your inner response. This is why emotional distance is not the same as pretending not to care. Pretending still has an audience. You ignore them hoping they notice. You post something hoping they see it. You stay silent while secretly waiting for them to come back. Your behavior still revolves around their reaction. Real distance begins when you stop asking what your choices will make them feel and start asking what those choices are doing to you. Are you calmer? Are you thinking more clearly? Are you rebuilding relationships you neglected? Are you making decisions without calculating how they might respond? Those are signs that the old dynamic is actually losing its grip. And notice what happened across these 3 stages. First, they tested you to see whether the old button still worked. Then they escalated when the familiar reactions stopped appearing. Finally, they lost the ability to predict what their behavior would make you do. But the biggest transformation was never theirs. It was yours. You stopped being automatically pulled into every silence, accusation, provocation, or sudden display of affection. You learned that a message does not require an answer. An accusation does not require a defense. A provocation does not require a reaction. And someone withdrawing their approval does not reduce your value. That is where control ends, not because you defeated another person, but because you stopped surrendering your emotional stability to their behavior. If this video helped you recognize this pattern, subscribe to The Inner Shadow and share it with someone who may still be trapped inside it. And I want to ask you something in the comments. Which tactics stopped working first when you stopped reacting? Silence? Guilt? Jealousy? Anger? Your answer might help someone else recognize the moment their own freedom began. And remember, the strongest sign that they no longer control you is not that they finally react differently. It is that you do.